Hello everyone, Rurikhan here coming at you with another first impressions video, and today we're going to be taking a look at Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. Now, this is a title that is for the PlayStation Vita, so as per usual, I am using a video camera to film the PlayStation Vita itself, so expect the graphics of the game to actually look significantly better on the console than what you are watching in this video. And for today's first impressions, I'm also doing it in a post-commentary format, because if I was to do live commentary in this game, I would most likely reveal a lot of spoilers from the first chapter of the game. And even though the developers basically allowed us to reveal those spoilers, I think that it would basically diminish your experience quite a bit if I was to reveal those particular portions of the story in this video, which is why I ended up going with post-commentary on this video. Anyways, I wanted to give you guys a basic overview of the plot before we get started talking about gameplay and all that other stuff, so that you guys understand kind of how the plot works in the context of the gameplay mechanics that I'm going to be telling you guys about. But the basic plot is that there is a school in Japan called Hope's Peak. This is the school where the best of the best of the best go to, and graduating from this school basically guarantees you success for life. So your character gets selected to attend this school in basically completely random fashion. They selected you from amongst a group of average students as an ultimate lucky student, so to speak, which is quite ironic, as you guys will see. So you get selected as the ultimate lucky student, and basically a bunch of other people get selected to attend as well, among which you will find the ultimate pop sensation, you will find the ultimate baseball star, the ultimate biker ganger, the ultimate biker gang leader, and a bunch of other people who are just ultimates at whatever they happen to do. And as such, they all get selected to attend Hope's Peak because they're the best of the best, and then you get selected because you're just flat out the most lucky person. So once your character actually arrives at Hope's Peak, he faints and then finds himself to be trapped inside the academy. And as your character starts basically moving around the academy, he encounters the other characters, the ultimates, so to speak, and they all kind of had a similar experience. Once they've gotten to the academy, they've all basically fainted and then woken up in what seemed like a completely different location, but apparently it is Hope's Academy. At the point of the story that I'm in right now, there is no confirmation whether or not I'm still in Hope's Academy, but it looks like it. And it's been changed, like the windows are boarded up with metal sheets, and there's basically no way to get out of the academy. Everyone is pretty much stuck there. At this point, they meet another character, which is a remote-controlled robot in the shape of a bear. You guys should be seeing it in the video. And his name is Monokuma. And Monokuma is apparently the person who kidnapped all of them. Well, not really kidnapped, since they went there voluntarily, but whatever. He's the one that trapped them all in that building. And basically he informs them that they're going to have to stay there forever. So everybody is going to have to live out the rest of their lives in that academy. Now, the academy is heavily monitored by surveillance cameras. It's basically like a really high-tech prison, so to speak. And in the presentation of the game, Monokuma basically lays out the rules, and he tells everybody that they have two choices. They can either live there forever, or they can basically kill someone else, not get caught, and they graduate. And once they graduate, they can leave the academy. And you guys might be like, what? That's so weird. And it is somewhat weird at the beginning of the game, like coming to grasp with all of these notions of what happened. But this game is based on both an anime and a manga. I don't know, there's a lot of other Japanese stuff in terms of lore for this title, because I did a little bit of research before I started this video. And so those are the basic plot settings. So you have all these characters which all excel at something, and they're all basically going to be forced to live there unless they kill someone, and nobody can find out about it. So now that you have a basic understanding of the plot, let's talk about the gameplay itself. So the gameplay is divided into 3 phases. The very first of those phases is where they tell you about the story of the game. They will tell you about some of the characters in the game. They will have you interact with some of the characters in the game, and they will give you free time for you to interact with other characters of your choosing. As you interact with these characters, you'll be able to develop relationships in a similar fashion than what you do in Shin Megami Tensei games like Persona 4. And depending on how the interaction with the other character goes, you might even gain additional skills which will become useful for you later on in other phases of the game. Throughout this free time that you're given, you can also explore the academy. You will be able to find bonus coins if you explore and find out certain elements within the academy. And as you find these coins, you can also then use them to get random presents, which you can give to the characters that you're interacting with to further deepen your relationship with them. And building relationships seems to be somewhat important in this title because of another phase of the gameplay, which I will mention a little bit further on. So once you are done with this, I'm going to call it the first phase. I don't know exactly what to call it, but once you're done with it, usually it culminates with someone getting murdered. So once someone gets murdered, the next phase of the game will begin, and that is the investigation phase. So the investigation phase consists, as the name implies, of the investigation to find out who is the perpetrator of the murder that took place, as well as finding out evidence and finding out how he did it, because you will have to prove all of these things in the next phase of the game. So as you progress through the investigation phase, you will also be able to explore the academy and go to the different sections of the academy to find out what happened, how it happened. You can also interrogate other characters, see if they have any insight as to what might have taken place. And you just have to keep in mind that one of those characters will be the murderer itself. So that is when the game gets interesting. There's a lot of tension between all of these characters because they realize that one of them got murdered by someone else that is in that same group. And it wasn't the bear, because the bear supposedly doesn't really kill anyone. Well, he might kill people if they break the rules that he set forth, but he doesn't really go out of his way to just flat out murder people. No, that is only performed by the people in the academy, the students themselves. But like I said, he will enforce a couple of rules that he puts in place. But anyways, as you progress through the investigation phase, you will accumulate something which is called truth bullets, which is kind of, I guess, where the name Trigger Happy Havoc comes from, because this game has almost nothing of a shooter to it, apart from the fact that you always have an aiming reticule, and you're kind of aiming it at stuff and shooting to get information, so to speak. But yeah, you get these truth bullets, and truth bullets are basically either evidence that you've accumulated or stuff that you've deduced or whatever throughout the investigation phase. So once the investigation phase is complete, once you've gathered a certain number of truth bullets, another phase of the game begins, which is the class trial. So the class trial is actually my favorite part of the game, because it is the part where things get really interesting, because you're like, so I've gathered all this evidence throughout the investigation stage, and now you have to present it in front of the whole group. Now when the class trial takes place, everyone is going to be in a circular room where everybody is facing each other and debating to find out who performed the murder. And here's the other thing. If during the trial you are unable to find out who the murderer is, what happens is the murderer gets to graduate and leave the academy, and everyone else gets killed. But if you find out who the murderer is, the murderer himself gets killed, and everybody gets to live on their life in the academy until something as another murder takes place. So, as you can see, it is kind of like a sick and twisted game, but it adds a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension between these characters, which obviously makes the game interesting when you're interacting with each of the characters of the game, because every single one of them might have their own reasons. Also, throughout the course of the story, the bear realizes that these students aren't just going to flat out off themselves. They're trying to work in tandem to escape the academy. So he basically provides everyone with a special DVD that contains a motive for them to want to leave the academy, therefore a motive for them to murder someone else. And that is kind of how the first murder takes place. But so, once you get to the class trial section, the gameplay changes dramatically. Instead of just interacting with other characters at a leisurely pace, the game actually takes on a more real-time approach to things. So, the very first of the minigames that you're going to be engaged in is called the non-stop debate. Now, the non-stop debate consists of people constantly presenting arguments which you will have to either shoot down or allow to be presented, depending on the validity of each of the arguments that they present. Now, shooting down an argument requires you to use a truth bullet. As I've said previously, throughout the investigation phase of the game, you will be acquiring truth bullets, which are, like I said, evidence that something took place in a certain way or didn't take place in a certain way. Like, for instance, did the killer break down a door, or was the door unlocked to begin with? Or was the door locked, or was the door just kind of stuck? Like, those are the kinds of things that you will gather throughout the investigation phase, and then once you engage in the non-stop debate, people will be talking about those arguments and you have to correct them. For instance, suppose that you somehow proved that a door was broken down in the investigation phase. You're going to have a specific truth bullet that is going to imply that. So when someone tells you that the killer was able to pick the lock on the door, you have to basically select that specific truth bullet and shoot down that argument using a mechanic that basically involves you press the left shoulder button on the Vita, which allows you to select which truth bullet you want to load into your, let's call it a truth gun. And when they present the argument is going to have a weak spot on it. You then have to aim your reticule or just touch it, touch the weak point in the argument, or you aim the reticule to that weak point and you press triangle, and that fires your truth bullet at the argument. Now here's the thing, there's also somewhat of a shooter element to the game at this point, which is the only point in the game where there's a shooter element to it, which is the arguments are basically text that shows up on screen. They're voice acted, but the text shows up on screen, and it's like floating in a certain direction, and you have to predict where it's going to be when your bullet is going to hit, because there is somewhat of a delay between you shooting and the thing actually hitting it. It's not instant, so you got to be careful about that. But yeah, basically it's all about matching your proof and evidence that you've uncovered through proof and evidence, which is the same thing, but let's say matching your evidence and deductions that you've uncovered throughout the investigation scene, and basically using those to shoot down the arguments that are weak. And once that takes place, sometimes you will also have to make decisions based on how do you want to present your case, which can range from having to choose between a multiple choice question or even just going into your electronic handbook that has all of your notes that you've uncovered throughout the investigation phase and choose a particular note that shows why something happened the way it did. Usually you will uncover a lot more clues than what you need for the class trial, therefore it really requires a lot of mix and matching, and that is kind of the type of minigames that you can expect throughout the class trial. Besides the non-stop debate, there's also something else, which is the Hangman's Gambit, which is you will have to kind of complete a word. Like they give you a couple of letters in a word and you will have to complete that word, and that word will usually be a piece of evidence that you also uncovered throughout the investigation, and then you will even have to recreate the entire crime itself using a comic book presentation style that the game provides you with, where you have to fill in the blanks of the murder that took place. There's even a rhythm minigame in there for good measure, but the point of it all is the fact that the class trial is the more how should I put this, the more fast-paced portion of the game, and therefore I guess that's why I kind of like it more. It is very challenging. Like, I thought, oh, so I'll just gather all of these evidence things in the investigation phase, and the class trial phase should be a piece of cake. It's actually not. It's actually pretty challenging, and there's a lot of nuanced mechanics to it that I can't even explain in a post-commentary video. But anyways, it was definitely, in my opinion, like the most fun portion of the game. It's kind of like the climax at the end of each chapter, because at least as far as I can tell, each chapter kind of consists of that first phase where there's a story and interaction and exploration with other characters, then a murder takes place, then an investigation, and then you get the class trial, and after that it seems you move on to the next chapter, at which point they unlock a little bit more of the academy for you to explore. For instance, at the end of Act 1 they unlocked a pool section, apparently a bathhouse, a warehouse, a library, and just a whole bunch of other places for you to explore within the academy. So now let's talk a little bit about the game's graphics. So as you guys can probably tell from the video up until this point, you'll be able to notice that the game has quite a unique presentational style, which consists of 2D characters on a 3D plane. Not just 2D characters, but 2D objects as well. Now, when you're inside a room or something like that in the game, it limits your field of vision in a way that it doesn't really allow you to rotate 360 degrees. It gives you a certain angle from which to look at, and it definitely, when you're looking at stuff from different angles that it allows you to position the camera as, you will notice that the characters are 2D as well as the models themselves are 2D. Like beds and chairs and tables and whatnot. Usually everything is 2D, kind of like cardboard cutout style. Now, this might be something that might be unappealing for some people, but to be completely honest, the strength of this game is not necessarily its graphics, and as far as I can tell, the graphics do their job in the grand scheme of things. There's also certain animations that take place where they actually go into a little bit more detail, some hand-drawn animation, where for certain expositions within the story. I can't really tell you a lot of them because it would be revealing certain plot points. I guess I can tell you that one of those animations is when one of the characters punches the bear. He just flat out punches the bear or pushes it around or whatever. And they actually made that a hand animation to be just different from the overall style of the game, just to give you a little bit of kind of like a cinematic. Okay, that's kind of like the purpose for those other sections. And so I have to say that in my opinion it's not particularly appealing, but once again that will differ from person to person, and whether or not it is appealing, it is most definitely rather unique. Like I said, I haven't really seen another game like that before, and once again the strong point of this game is not in the graphics. It is in the interaction with each of the characters. It is in the story. It is in the details and that kind of stuff. In terms of soundtrack, I really like the music that's playing during the class trials. But outside the class trials, I have to be honest, there was some music, some tracks that I found somewhat unappealing. But once again, that's probably going to change for different stripes for different folks, or whatever the expression happens to be. So overall, I actually found myself surprised by this title, because this wasn't even a title I requested. NISAmerica just sent it to me for me to do this video, and I was surprised because I wasn't expecting to be that interested in the title, but I'm still playing it, which is usually a good sign. So if any of the stuff that you've seen in this video seems appealing to you, then you might enjoy the title. I myself am still enjoying it. I intend to keep on playing it, even though it is not usually my kind of game. This is usually definitely not my kind of game. I don't tend to play these games. It's if I had to compare it to other titles, I would say it's somewhat of a mix between Virtue's Last Reward, even though I haven't really made a video on that game either, but I have played it through PlayStation Plus. But it is a mixture of Virtue's Last Reward and, from what I can tell, Ace Attorney, which, the whole clue gathering and evidence gathering and all that stuff. And then it has the more unique side to it, which is the class trials, because it's more in real time and it's more action, and it sets up a lot of it gives you a really good pacing, I feel, in that particular section of the game. But once again, this is all dependent on whether or not you enjoy the art style, and probably most importantly, if you enjoy the storyline. If you do enjoy the storyline that I told you about, if you like these kinds of games, more than likely you will enjoy this title, because it is solid. The voice acting is solid. not all the lines in the game are voice acted, but the ones that are voice acted are very, very solid. Even in the English, because I was listening to it in English. I haven't really tried out the Japanese ones yet, but obviously, usually at least, the Japanese voiceovers are better than the English ones. So if the English ones are good, you can only assume that the Japanese ones only get better. I would really like the game was fully voice acted, but I mean, there's so many lines in this game that would just be ridiculous. Apart from that, I don't really have anything else to say. It is a solid title if you enjoy the specific genre. If you enjoy what you've watched so far throughout this video, more than likely you will enjoy the title. And that's pretty much it. As per usual, leave me your comments, feedback, all the kinds of good stuff in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.